people who tune in now or on watchback. Hey, check this out. I'm going to try Rumble for the first time. Okay. So I've got to click over there. So bear with me half a second and let's see if we can get Rumble to work. I've got everything set up. Let's go. 1, 2, right there. Okay. Start stream. Connected. Right. Start stream. Well, we're waiting for encoding server to claim placeholder video. Welcome while we do that, everybody else. I'm going to flip over there to the chat, see if we have anybody pop in. I've got a little video planned. We're just going to do why. Okay, it says live there. So last time, guys, if you'll understand why I'm asking you, bear with me 2 secs. I thought I had Rumble set up to stream, but I forgot to go over and verify that it was working. And it turns out it wasn't because I forgot to flip over to Rumble and press stream. So you have to route it in directly. Okay, it looks like we started streaming. Oh no, and it didn't use the thumbnail that I generated for it. That's terrible. All right, well, we'll see to it later. We won't make everybody wait while we look. I loaded it. It's the same thumbnail, Rumble, that I use everywhere. I love you, Rumble. You're just, I know it's because the freedom. I know that makes it why you're keeping yourself separate from everybody. I get it, but for just a dude by himself here. Yeah, listen, just take it easy. They don't know about my producer when I don't mention him. I'm just kidding. It's just me. He's in here. All right, so everything's up and running, and it looks like we have chat. Welcome, everybody. How's your Monday? How was your weekend? And let me remember my panel. Boom. Public chat. Bro, Jake Wills. All right, Jake Wills. I do have a little video freedom. Freedom ain't free. Amen to that. Let me, in our opening few minutes here. There we go. Yeah, but I think we're up and running, So we are now streaming across, should be anyhow, YouTube, X, Facebook, and Rumble. I think that covers us, and Riverside as well. So we'll see how it all takes. What are we gonna do tonight? It's episode 13. I know what you're thinking. 11 and 12 were like fire. He was catching his game, and then he's gone for a week with nothing. And this is probably going to be a banger one. He's going to come back with, something, right? See, I thought that for a minute too. But Jacqueline probably knows what I did with that thought. In AA, we called it the fuck it bucket. You take all your worries and you write them down, and then you ball them up and you throw it into a net, and they would, or a basket, and then they'd say you'd give it to God, right? Of course, it's lighting on fire or how you dispose of it is always an option, and probably depended on the teacher and the liability insurance of where that lesson was being taught. Right? So I did not bring forth a master plan here, and that probably is the master plan. I was off last week. I did give myself a little notes here, like right beforehand. If you're here at the beginning, you saw me taking them. I got to get a mic that I can do the Dave Chappelle signature, mic. It's great. Okay, so last week, so my daughter's birthday, Charlotte was 14. And of course, that's always, a big event in any father's life, probably, more so for him than the children, but any parent, one should say. But so I wanted to allot, appropriate time, though I didn't have, anything but a couple of hours with her on her birthday, blessedly. I still, wanted to allot, time for that, and of course, time for proper headspace. This name shaman and this whole sort of endeavor I'm under, taking here with taking up your good people's time and telling some stories and putting out some stuff here. There is naturally, well, the spiritual component is it's walking right here with the material and hand in hand, right? Hence the screen name. So one must always care for oneself and allot time for oneself. To allow for you to, if you're going to try to grasp, your spiritual nature and any spiritual realities for that matter, you have to allow, yourself time with that reality, right? Yeah, for sure. So a bit of that played into it as well. So it all just combined, for me to make the decision to take the week off. What else added to that would probably be episode 11 and 12 Rumble, guys. If you just now stumbled in and you're wondering who's this big hairy fucking denimed weird thing with the skull and what does that say behind him, and is that a wood? Those are two swords and that's a wand. What is going on here? Welcome. I'll let your assumptions, go all over the place because trust me, mine do as well about me, and that tells you what you're in for here, ladies and gentlemen. However, to stay on point, I did upload episode 11 and 12 to Rumble, so if that's how you're viewing the performance here, then if we can. If we can pull one together, so which hence is the fun of setting forth back here with you guys with no serious plan except to look at one or two things and let the conversation. Tammy, there we go. It's the first 15 minutes. I gotta remember to pay attention to chat. What's going on, Tammy? Thank you as always for all the support and coming and hanging with me, but everyone. I mean, Tammy's come over to the Institute Discord. She's all over the place on X right now. You can see her on Facebook. Yeah, Tammy's all over the place, checking out the what shall we say, Tammy? The work of the artistic glaciers up in northern New York, along with some other, actually understood to be man-made stone structures. Is the best I could put some of the pictures I've been enjoying off of Tammy recently. Thanks, Tammy, for showing up. So it's going to be kind of low key here tonight. I really was just about getting the ball rolling back again here this week after taking the week off, which is where I was before I said hi to all my friends. Thank you guys so much for showing up, right? It means so much to just be able to have somebody to talk to, It's not like this is a massive production. So while much of what I do, is sort of just on my own, the whole goal here is to also have a little bit of this. So yeah, thank you, Tammy. Really, I mean, there we go. You're just one of us out here. Yeah, Chambers, Walls, Glacier, Radix, it goes on and on. And there's stuff that you and I would probably even argue over. I'm not sure. We haven't had enough conversations to see where you are on some of those erratics that are just like, no, Glacier. Glacier had arts and crafts lessons that day, but that's just me. But yeah, thank you seriously for all of you guys. Jacqueline, Universe Unveiled. I'm sure Sarah is busy with family, and it's not like I expect you here because Lord knows I never make all your shows, but it just goes to show you what good support system is like, right? Because Sarah and Jacqueline are usually always here, so we've got to tell everybody on Rumble and YouTube to X, I mean everywhere, Facebook, same places I'm at, and you're watching me right now. Go check out Universe Unveiled, right? They are sister podcast of a podcast I do with Ricardo Calvario called Shaman and Philosopher, and all of us are little offspring branches of the Institute for Natural Philosophy. Yeah, it's a nice little org. We've got we're cobbling together with our meager efforts, headed by Mr. Ricardo Calvario, who is, I think, on the plane back to Portugal at the moment. Yeah, he's one of those weirdos from the Templar hiding everything in megalithic mountains, land that is Portugal. Home to, was it Columbus? Columbus was Portuguese, right? Was he? Or he sailed from there. And then, of course, many of the chroniclers from the De Soto expedition were, in fact, Portuguese, and many of them on, the expedition. So there's that nice tie-in as well. To finish the plug, a universe unveiled. We did. We wrapped all the way around Institute of Natural Philosophy. Look, keeping myself on point. Yeah, that I jinxed myself, didn't I? Like, I got the wand pointing out. I took it out of the horse skull's eye. And I wanted something about the swords and the wand. I wanted to be able to, I don't think it was clear. And that was a wand I made as well. Not because of, just because it's cool. I make staffs. Yeah. There was a Harry Potter joke waiting in there somewhere, and I just tripped over it. There's Sarah. I already gave you your plug, but there you are. I don't know why thingies didn't go off. There's, as you know more than me, because you've been at this longer than I have, there's much to see after when you start adding all these platforms, and it's just you. Once you got the function and you're sure that's going, the rest of it's kind of winging a prayer. Sort of like trying to do a podcast and drink your cinnamon tea at the same time. Yeah, I'm here. I'm here to do profess. Yeah, there we go. Tammy's got it on. Tammy knows what's up. Well, Sarah is head of PR for the Institute of Natural Philosophy. So we do sort of like to have, the boss around when we're sitting here reaching out to the public. Lord knows it keeps me from saying about 80% of the things that come up here and just sort of start knocking and go, hey, we're gonna come out and be said. And it's like, Sarah's here, shut the fuck up. Thank you, Sarah. I don't have to dodge any flip-flops. Yeah, she'll throw a flip-flop at you real quick if you get out of line. So when you hear me, I don't want to be throwing out stuff, and everybody's like, "Why is he talking about flip-flops?" It's because Sarah, they're like she's an assault rifle when armed with a flip-flop. Okay, and that carries over. If I don't live near her, and others don't, but that flip-flop will get to you. Don't ask questions. Trust me. Okay, you see how well behaved I am. Any of you that have seen me on other, that I. Fuck this, fuck that, you fucking fuckers, yeah, is usually what's going on here. But I got PR in the house, so I like the Institute. I don't want to get fired. All right, let's keep moving here because we have sailed nearly to our introductory mark of 15 minutes is kind of where I like to keep us here for all of this fun we're having together before I start showing anything. Really what I'd done, because I was so unsure about Rumble because of my failure to get it launched last time, was I was going to show a video that I'm sure the folks here probably already watched that I put up on X, just to fast forward through it and sort of do my tradition of letting the scenery be seen for a minute, and then see where that leads us in conversation. It brings me back to sort of 11 and 12, and then we'll launch in here as we still got a minute for intro. 11 and 12, I thought I nailed pretty well, right? And this, again, coming from a very, you guys know me, I'm new, right? And you'd seen the trash that was coming up through 10, right? So nailed is not exactly saying anything, right? But for my take, right, for what I was after, the little goals I had set for myself to do when I'd set 3 episodes, I was like, all right, I'm going to do 1 episode where it's sort of all about, the stuff I'm finding, and I'm going to go there like that day, and I'm going to film it, and I'm going to put it together, and we're going to talk about it. And I did that in 12, right? And even brought, I think, some pretty decent, solid challenges forth, to the traditional narrative, all in one little episode. And then in 11, right, I had done what I also said I wanted to do with the second episode of the 3, which was begin sort of treading into spiritual territory, the other side of the shamanic walk, right? Which I thought I did also quite successfully with 11, right? Again, not boasting to you guys, you know, I'm not really, I can't concern myself with necessarily too much what you think, because otherwise I wouldn't be vulnerable, you know, as again, 11 I was able to do. And that's what I mean. I sort of satisfied my own little artistic goals as I'm beginning to teach myself, you know, how to do all this, right? So that leads us into what I also wanted to do here in 13 and why, you know, I didn't come back with just, big bang plan after a week off, new show, a week off, let's do it, you feel the, you know, and anybody that's come to know me has learned that my immediate reaction to that is, okay, listen, we're gonna go the other way. It's kind of, that's loud and sort of noisy that way. Can't think too clearly. So we're gonna tone it down a notch. In other words, the no plan episode, which was sort of also one of the stated goals, I wanted to be able to talk to chat, you know, and work all of that into sort of just a loose-ended episode. Potentially, you know, a guest or two, if I can get like some local people, perhaps, you know, that want to come on and talk about, you know, their experiences, Logan, etc. You know, all of that is sort of this third episode. So honestly, it was the best way to come back here is to sort of just hang out with you guys. So we're gonna at least tick the box of some pretty scenery other than the hairy guy and the weird jit behind him. And we're going to do that for a minute. And that's going to lead us into conversation that is loosely, you know, sort of begun by the video itself. So we're going to do that by opening this window here. And where did I load that? I loaded that on X is what I did. So anybody watching X, you're going to see a double dip here. But I just want to, let's look at this place. We can even mute some of the narration. I was just sort of having fun. I've been watching these shows lately, like late at night, you know, when you want to just fall asleep, where they're like, you know, travel shows. And the hosts are like snarky, you know, and not always. Some of them are quite, there we go, got it pulled up. Are quite just, you know, good, polite human beings. I can't watch anybody for too long that's not just generally that. But it is sometimes, because I guess they're British, you know, perhaps most of them. Canadian, one of them, Jacqueline. I've been watching a lot of Canada by Train recently. It's fucking beautiful. There is so much up there that I honestly had no idea about. That's why I like watching a lot of these videos, you know. These train trips especially. I learned when I was young, and when I did a little traveling here on this continent by train. You know, that you see the good stuff oftentimes that way, as opposed to the more modern forms of transport we have come up with here, like the interstate highway system. There we go. And I am shared, and so I can quit talking funny because I was multitasking. And let me come back to home window. See, I need to blow this up. The phone can be a second camera. I should turn that on and let you guys see this. These panels are working here. Okay, Sarah and Jacqueline are like, shut up, it's easy. Okay, so we've got full screen there, but now I got to come back over here to Riverside. And all right, we're there. We could perhaps just, there we go. And then if we minimize you, not minimize, what do you call it when you go to the one in the middle? See, it's perfect now. I can see both. Okay, so part of the tradition of this endeavor of mine, this particular show, if we can call it that, is that I wanted to start showing you guys literally with video the landscape for which I've been exploring, right? You know, I do have the material evidence of the Hernando de Soto expedition, the Mobilla, and all of the native stuff, you know, I've been finding. I've also then got the big rocks, the antediluvian side of the story, right? I've got all of that. But to me, and I also have quite a story and a thesis that goes along with all of it, right? You know, years of work. But for me, it seemed most appropriate to begin this process while I learn and introduce myself to it by introducing you all to the landscape, to the places, right? And I also, it seems, it could keep myself grounded along with you, right? By keeping it fresh, right? We might be looking at some of the same places a couple of days, but it's because, hey, it's close and it's a known spot where I can go and I can keep it sort of something I did that day as part of this presentation as well. So that's what this was. I recorded quite a bit more, and if there's any interest whatsoever as I fast forward through some of these bits, who knows? I might just dive over into my iCloud and see if I can pull those videos up. I didn't really take the time as I usually do because time didn't allow to and I wasn't sure about it. Man, when you're putting together a whole video, it takes a minute, right? It just does. And then it takes a minute for more than like a handful, as the kids say, a minute, but shit. An hour, 45 minutes, right? To get the thing uploaded, no matter how you do it, onto YouTube, and then show it to you guys. So this, I just throw on X. I didn't get them all up there. But we're going to look at scenery now. Shut up, Jason. Press play. I hear you. I do. Oh, that's awesome. I love these. I feel like I'm back outside. That's perfect. Yeah. I'm not a fan of inside, right? There's nothing wrong with inside, but outside is just preferable. Nearly no competition. All right.
Okay, I've been watching far too many snarky travel series because I find them relaxing at night, and they're always like giving you a tour of the place, but they're also sort of giving your opinion. So I thought we'd first, as we came to our lodgings, and don't worry, as always, I'll disclose at the end just how much today's lodgings cost us.
I totally stole that from somebody.
Obviously, one of the points that just absolutely sells the place is the point. It's an island point. Who has this for free?
It's a beautiful place.
Oh, I just spoiled the ending.
There are no words, really.
Dogs also welcome.
And Jacob is a water dog.
The entertainment is provided.
Yeah, he's... Thankfully, he really takes to it. I'll tell you about that here in a second.
Literally, one thing I would say is they could have left the dog toys in a cleaner sort of arrangement, but having them sort of grouped here and there just past the point. Let's go back to the tour. After you come down the elegant treescape.
I shouldn't be making myself laugh like this.
It's marvelous construction. You just walk right down here and it opens onto the veranda, which we'll get to in a minute. But here you'll see you already have the first piece of furniture. I mean, have you ever seen such elegant craftsmanship and the time it took? I mean, there's probably 20 years just in the forming of that piece of particular furniture. As we keep an eye on Jacob, because there are snakes here. We'll get to that in a minute. You climb over the rest of the dog toys, past the entranceway. Jacob! Jacob!
There were children.
I must say it's a long walk to the adjoining wing of the establishment, but along the way, what makes the walk take even longer, right? Really longer than it should. Whoever made the place should probably keep this shit in mind. But as you're trying to get to the adjacent wing, you keep stumbling over. I mean, I'm no professional, and I can't find the guide anywhere.
Quit saying it.
But it seems to me this quartz is very oddly shaped. I mean, there's a really big hunk of it there. And there it is with this very odd shape to it. You can't help but stop and notice the fact that somebody, it would seem to me that somebody just left some artifacts here for the folks that come here to this, frankly, stellar establishment to just stumble over. it's really my only note so far. That, and there's no concierge to help with all the stuff.
I'm thinking about starting one up, right there.
But, so far, I mean, really, I'm giving the place an 11 out of 10, but that's, only because.
And you can see where
it's perfect.
I can't even.
That's why.
Keep up the snarky playfulness, because
thanks for joining me.
When you're there
on the tour. Got some other people coming to check it out too. The landscaping artist, exterior decorator, really does deserve commending. I mean, his choice of landscaping courts it's just, he was so original. So Jacob, yesterday we came to this spot as well. This is earlier today. Oh, this piece is wild. Look at this quartz here. Let me get this way. All right. They flood this, which I know you can't wash it off, but it doesn't. It just corrodes it. I know you can't see it, right? Because it hasn't been cleaned, right? But you get a piece like this, right? And at first you're like, oh, it looks like a fucking femur, right? And it's all covered and looking like that, covered in the grime from being flooded. But what you might see if you're out there in the sunlight, right? And let me hang on, don't lick it. No, and if I had front lighting, see, I try to do sideways lighting, but I think you can. Yes, I licked it. It's field, man. When you're out in the field and you need to know what something is, you spit on it. But I clean this, so I know precisely where it's been. You see quartz, right? Little crystals sticking out on the end. So now, again, you don't have, there's, just all through there. Again, you don't have a professional here. What you do, oh, I forgot, man. I'm in control here. Like, I'm so silly sometimes. See, I can always just go stop sharing, right? And I can do this for a second, right? Good thing I did. I blew it up after I licked it, right? That was not a screenshot anybody needs. But you can see these little quartz crystals, right? Sticking out right here. So now again, back to where I was, you don't have a professional here. What you have before you at all times, I'm talking on this stuff, is a guy who has spent a lot of time out in the field. And I've found this stuff coming out of the earth, where it's produced by the impact that happened in the area. There's a celestial impact. We call it the star wound, but it's a giant 12-mile impact crater, right? And all the shot quartz in this incredible landscape was created. But what you find on this island, is you find all these pieces that were shaped, I mean, for my money, I can hold it in one hand, all rough and fucking jagged and muddy and can't even tell what it is, or I can see it, in the vein of the rock. There's these guys have seen me at the Coosa climbing over these giant rocks, right? Well, these giant rocks sticking out of the earth from, again, impact crater. I mean, you're like not even a few hundred yards, honestly, maybe a quarter of a mile, from the crater rim itself, which is the size of a small mountain, right? It's a big event. But you can find this island littered with items that don't match at all the condition with which you find this stuff, because when it's in these giant chunks, man, you gotta get it out of there. And we're talking boulders, right? Sticking out of it. They don't move. Sticking out of the river. Sticking out of the creeks. These pretty waterfalls you see me at, those big rocks. All right. Well, they're full of quartz and this other materials. And how they get like that?
you know. So same spot. I'm not going to take up any more than perhaps another minute, you know, showing off, but you guys are already familiar. And that's kind of why I didn't put this whole video together, right? Was you should be, or you can be, if you go check out any of my videos, quite familiar with all of these pieces and this particular spot. So I don't want to get bogged down in it, but there you go. There's a close-up look at when these pieces are dirty, you know. For instance, last one, the first one that came to mind, you know. See, this looks just like the one that was in my hand, right? It looked just like it, right? You see the quartz cluster there in the end, right? And before it broke, it jaggedly came off down here and down here, and it stood up, right? And you can see there the quartz vein, the way it was worked out, you know, and accentuated to my mind. Again, just the dude that's found lots of this the way it's found in nature, right? But when you pick up these filthy pieces, you don't realize, you know, unless you spend some time with it, what it is you're picking up, right? Until you bring it home and you give it a wash off. I know the silver in that doesn't show, man, and I'm not saying it's the metal silver, but I think it does back here. But the silver reflection, it's just really beautiful piece, right? So now back to the piece we're looking at in the video. It's this, right? This material, and like the sort of femur piece I was showing you to start this little side bar with you all. Your Honor, listen, we need to, are you sure you can be a judge? I mean, I see that's at least 2 swords behind me. Is that a staff? A staff. That's not very judgely. Is that a wand? This wand. It's wand. And is that a human? No, it's a horse skull. Why what'd the horse do to you, man? Okay, I don't think we should be judging anything here in this room, actually, by your Honor. See, gotta have fun with these shows. Sorry if that's in any way. And why am I sorry, man? See, I'm so used to doing other people's shows, right? That's the other thing that is about this one. You don't have to consider anybody but you guys that are watching and chatting and hanging out with me. Thank you, Tammy. Right? I know. It's rocks. It's rocks. So, but of course I could sit here all day and show it off. There's really so much, you know what I mean? And that's why I started the series, because again, there's so much to show. It's like every little piece is so I can't get sidetracked. But I do appreciate the love too, because I mean, you can't get sidetracked. Sidetracked is your gig, man. I know. Well, see, I can see myself, and that's part of the problem because you're big. Go back to the side video. There you go, and share. And let's play. Now, you see here, this very top piece is my I don't think my mouse. There it is. See, this is weird. The mouse is big, and now, boom, got it. Okay. So this piece right here is a quartz piece, a little quartz cluster, just as what I had showed you from behind me, okay? Now we're clear.
Wow, isn't that a cool looking piece? So that's a quartz crystal there, if the light's not showing it. Excellent design choice. I even like the greenery. So it would appear that on this wing of the establishment, my zoom. See, that's how big this place is. I have to use the zoom to show you where we'll prop ourselves up. For the afternoon, there's okay, so if we go, there we go. Let me get back to where I was. Sorry, I got a lot going on here. Okay. Concept. It seems to be a large. Oh my! rock outcroppings.
It's a good thing I didn't go to the trouble to put this
Designer
together in a video,
used
isn't it? That wind is, man, that audio.
Meteoric impact. This is the crater. You can see over here. So that top tree line there, that is the side of the boom boom that redecorated this area.
All right, now we hit the rocks. I can't remember. Oh, this is just my looking at the. This is where I.
That's how we know to attribute a landscaper.
It was my homage to who's one? I forget their names. Trek Trendy. He's one of them. He's this real like posh dude that like takes his mom and dad with him everywhere. Did I just say mom and dad? I did, because that's what he says. He takes his mom and his dad, went on his trips with him, which is wholesome and gives you the vibe of a cool dude. And then you get to watch all these train trips and boat trips, which again, just seeing the scenery it's relaxing. So anyway, I was just sort of doing an homage to that, messing around while I was walking over there today to hang out with Jacob.
There's our shade, our room, and the end of the tour, because the rest of the way requires water. And I don't want you
that
to
audio, man. The clouds today were something. The sky, everything was. Notice the lack of contrails / chemtrails.
What do you say, Jacob? A++?
Very odd today to not have those.
A++.
So when you've seen, if Sarah and Jacqueline, if you're still around, I know I've seen you videos, but I've posted a few times on X. But man, the things that are sprayed in the sky here on a regular basis, and for anyone to accept the answer that is regular sky travel, doesn't live here, because then you'll go out on a Monday morning, right, and go, well, where are they all, man? Thank you, Jacqueline, as always, here to build me up when I am putting myself down. And that's what you call a friend. Appreciate it, bro. You heard from Ricardo? He land yet? He make it to Portugal? I haven't, checked my Discord group chat. We keep up with each other, right? So, again, come find us, guys. Oh, thank you, Sarah. Yeah. Okay, so there's a second video that I filmed today. Again, I was kind of, I'm always, if I'm filming, I'm going to sort of have a series in mind, even though I do have sort of an overarching thing that I'm always sort of just grabbing, documenting, stones for. And it's not always worth putting out to you guys, because you've seen so much of the stones. But what I do have is a little conversation starter. Okay, landing in Minneapolis. Cool, thank you. And I wonder if he's got a layover there. I had like a 6-hour layover earlier. So it's a little conversation starter we're gonna wander off into Mobilla, Chief Tuscaloosa, Hernando Soto territory, sort of naturally because of where we are in that video. We're on the Coosa River, as I explained in this short little, it's about 2.5 or is it 3 minutes? The only other thing I loaded up today, and we're going to take a look at that, and then we're going to chat for a minute and see where we go to finish our remaining half hour or so together. Welcome, everybody. Welcome, Rumble. This is your first time seeing this live stream. Glad to have you. I really have got too much going on to see Rumble separate, so it doesn't bring my chat here. So I sort of have to find another way on my phone, and I got too much going on, man. I'd make the other people wonder, why is he going live if he's going to stumble on his phone? But what I do have to do is narrate my way through maximizing X. And then we need to minimize that. Then we need to scroll up here to number 2, maximize him. mute it, scroll back, right, and then we bring him in again, come back to you cats where I can see everything going on, collect share screen, and let's move on over to X with that. Bam. Look at us. Okay, so only a few more adjustments here to get it where we want it. So first we've got to bring it full, do that, Jazz with you guys, yep, and then bring you. I think I could bring
on
you
this
full
island.
screen, yep, and then close it like that, and then back. Look at us.
I mean, of course, big hunks of beautiful quartz. But
This is the wrong video.
also a bunch of really weird rocks.
It's weird.
There's some other people here.
It's weird shape for quartz. It's weird shape. Okay, so I've got to go back through this process, but it only takes a second now, and we're going to minimize you, and then we've got to scroll all the way up to this one here and start our conversation part of the evening.
What it does, when you just sit on this whole island of quartz, right? This beautiful hunk, a little dirty on the back, and then all sorts of petrified wood, schist, the other material that comes from the impact,
mica, all kinds of
sorts
stuff.
of shapes, right? That just stand out. One then begins to wonder about, well, what was the native population of the area? Let's go back to some first-hand accounts. Okay, we got to read about Hernando de Soto. Let's zoom down to, we're here on the Coosa River, right before Wetumpka, right about the crossing into Tuscaloosa's territory. So that would put us in Coosa's territory. Makes sense. I'm on the Coosa River here in Elmore County, just south of Coosa County. What do those sources tell me? They tell me it took them 23 days, I think, to get through, or to get to the main town of the chief, Coosa.
So
and
after
it said on
the
an average day's march,
3 days to his town,
they could pass through as many as 10 or 12 towns, right? It doesn't break down what they meant necessarily by town, right? It wouldn't be what we might think of, but it was a fair chunk of people. Now, 23 days. And they also say, what else do they say? They said off the road, right? There were other towns or villages that they put it that were made up of a few families, right? So they're counting these, up to 10 or 12. So even if it's 5 or 6, right? Large villages, they call them towns. And then they note that even off to down the road, off to the side, there's villages. So I can see just from that there were a lot of people here, right? I don't have to sit in this landscape marred by interstellar collision to look for something that could have been shaping all of this material, harvesting it. There were people everywhere. Right.
So when I watch this, it's obvious to me, and I assume it is to you all, that obviously these are part of a much larger sort of project I'm working on. But you guys are hanging out with me and sort of get to watch the pieces as we go, and I appreciate you for it. More than I can say. Okay, so the rest of that is just me. Sorry, I took away the last few seconds from you, didn't I? It's just me looking at the water.
There were people everywhere around here. You can see why too.
What a sky today, man. What a sky. What a sky. Okay, let's bring us back. Front and center. You like talking about the chief, Jacqueline says a minute ago. And I do believe, yeah, I put that up on the board already. I do too, Jacqueline, quite a lot. Why? Of the many stories, not really that many. It's sort of one big story, honestly. But an elephant is eaten one bite at a time. The many elements of the story to me that is most emotional, emotionally tied, right? Just because of also the process of personal transformation, right, that I was undergoing while I was introduced to this landscape, which I am introducing you all to here, one episode at a time, right? And it was in this landscape where before I even knew anything about Mabilla, right? Again, anybody that knows me for long enough, been watching, you understand that I was not looking for it. That was not part of the process. But I was, looking for something, and both within and without. And I was going through a process of personal transformation, great change, right? As Sarah and Jacqueline would remember from what was my statement on your show, change is it's, here, let's go with chat so everybody sees what it's an integral part, right? Going through this process, of great change, right? Undergoing personal transformation. I became aware, of the native presence, in this area, not only physically finding things, like everybody going, yeah, that's just a bunch of rocks down at the creek. And you're like, man, really? Like, you sure? Are you sure? Look, look, man, you sitting by the fire, you made a fire ring. You're like, look, man, it stands up. It stands up, bro. That's not, just imagine a couple of years of that, and these realizations sort of dawning on me about this landscape, right? And I wasn't going to books, I could hardly even, oh, you saw Venus next to the crescent moon. Oh, yeah. So you're a time zone ahead of me, and man, I got storms blowing all through. You can see a little sun going there, but I got storms, so I'm not sure if I can check it out. Where was I? I got to decide when I look at chat. That's what I got to do. Either that or I don't have a producer, so nobody here to keep me on point. Doesn't really matter, does it? Chief Tuscaloosa in this process of personal transformation and finding all these things and becoming aware of not only a native presence in the area, just literally from the ground up, from the sides of these creeks, making these fire rings for myself, going through this process, which we've touched on many times, right? Then, right, fast forward a couple of years, and I undergo the process of discovering Mabilla, right, and not knowing at first quite where I was, what I was finding, but followed the threads, put them together. You've heard the story, right? That was all, right, completely separate and right at the beginning of my education on what actually took place here, in this territory in that time with those Native Americans and their encounter with Hernando de Soto. And because I had already had laid the groundwork, the spiritual and emotional sort of connection and process I had undergone that had attached me to the native presence of this area, and began my sort of quest here, quest that I was on at that time, and sort of perpetually on, which is figuring out what we can about them here, because so much of it is being really actively destroyed. It's life, I guess, but it'd be nice if we could save some of it. Anyway, Jason does a lot of just going and recording and observing and being, in these places, because there's so much about these people and these cultures, because of how they disappeared and were nearly just eradicated from the timeline, from the moment of contact forward, just sort of. There's so much, no matter what any archaeologist or independent researcher or digger of earth or intuitor or, whatever, we'll never know what we lost, right? We'll never have a full grasp, We get a solid glimpse from, and it's just that, a glimpse, and again, a narrativized, at least from the, not, even if you don't want to call it narrativized, from the perspective of Westerners, who just were bumbling through here, sort of fighting for their lives and committing mass atrocities as well, So again, just a glimpse in all of these first-hand accounts, but I do give them, all the massive credence that one should, a first-hand account, especially when it is one of very, very few, before the ramifications of that first contact set in, and disease, and all of the things that just very quickly, in a generation, wiped out much of what was here, and therefore culture and traditions, of course, are one of the first casualties of any great population decline. So, to keep us going here with Chief Tuscaloosa, once I then started educating myself, right, on what these first-hand accounts all said happened here, and because I had found the place where the battle occurred, I could then begin using tools at this point, bringing in maps, right? And then start bringing in, I found, free LiDAR we can all, access here in the U.S. And you start going out and really hunting down what would have then been the trek that DeSoto would have taken, between these few towns in Tuscaloosa's territory, because that has been the big question mark. It's the whole area around Mobilla that is also that no one could, purportedly find, right? Town of Piaccia, excuse my pronunciation, and Attahachie, right, were in that order the first two towns that we have note of in Tuscaloosa's territory. There is a few sentences in this volume. Again, I think you had maybe 13 chroniclers. I'm sorry, I can't remember the number. Many different, accounts, right? And then you have guys that were just even documenting, story from this guy, right? But for the most part, the towns and stuff roughly line up. But obviously, there are many cases of here and there where, we went to this town and it was named this. One guy says it was this day. The other guy says it was actually last Wednesday before these other two towns, So there is mention in here of a town called Tuscaloosa. They said it was Maine London's province that they went to before they crossed the river. See, the river crossing is mentioned, There's two river crossings mentioned in this story that comes to us. And the Coosa River, where I am here and why we're talking about it now in these videos you've been watching, was one of the crossings, most assuredly, potentially the Tallapoosa, because where the Coosa and the Tallapoosa meet, you form the Alabama River from there forward. And the assumption had then been always that the second crossing had to have been the Alabama, right? But what always kept the question mark around sort of the Coosa and Tallapoosa is because no one could find Mobilla or Piachia, right? And Piachia is described pretty definitively as having 40-foot plus cliffs, right? The river, you crossed it and there's these cliffs, right? So you can't just, ascribe some mound site to Piachia. You've got descriptions, river crossing cliffs, right? So they could never nail down where this river crossing happened on the Alabama. They didn't even know if, when they were saying they crossed that river, were they crossing north to south? Were they crossing south to north or east? They were just crossing the river. And the Alabama River here, guys, it does literally this. And I'm oriented north to south, right? So it wouldn't have done any good anyway, right? But that's why that this portion then to Tuscaloosa's territory has been the massive question mark. Not just where is Mobilla, right? It's where is even his territory, man, right? Like where precisely did they cross? Because if they went, see, they're always leaving room. If they went north of the Alabama River is where you find find Mobilla, well, then you had to cross south of Tallapoosa, and you just got all these convoluted theories, right? Well, once you find it, and you look at the map, and you've been out like I have for years in it already, right? I already knew the landscape before I even go, oh, this is Mobilla, holy shit. And before I even go, all right, well, let's find the rest of it. I already knew this place. I was attached to it spiritually, not just my physical explorations, right? Sorry, I glanced at chat. Thank y'all so much for hanging out and talking over there. And I'm sorry for trying to stay on point for this bit of the story. So I'll just bring us back to we're at the Coosa River, right? And once you map out the route backwards, which is what I did, right? And found Piachia, found the 40-foot cliffs. I've got all the drone footage of showing that they crossed where they crossed. Is actually, they weren't even crossing the actual river. It's just is wonderful, wonderful. And here's where we get back to Tuscaloosa. Plan that was put in place, that was prepared for Hernando de Soto so far in advance, it would seem. This is a part of the story, obviously, that's remained unknown, right? Because you can get from these firsthand accounts that there was a trap set up. That much is, pretty clear, right? But without being able to find the towns and the river crossings, you have no grasp of actually what that meant for the native people here in this area. What So once you map it out, and once you find Attahachie, then what I, again, to be official here, what I purport, what I theorize is the site of their meeting in Attahachie with some pretty definitive evidence for my non-professional, money, right? What you then see is a plan of such boldness. Here's the thing. When I start to talk about this plan, I don't even, and this process that De Soto was snared into, I don't even have proper adjectives for it, because I'm trying to always at all times honor what must have been that native perspective, while also trying to understand all of what they did, and then what can we glean from that. You see what I mean about how so much is missing. But as I started piecing the story together, I got a glimpse of this chief who not only giant, right? I mean, 8 feet. Come on, man. That's how I use that word. 8.5. I mean, if you take the measurements provided in all of these, literally, that's about where you are. When you then couple and can understand the plan that he put in place here on this ground, you start to get a glimpse of what was here. And I don't ever want to allow my words to in any way dishonor that glimpse, right? Because it's something, again, I've walked, right? And so I try when I begin sharing here to honor, right, what would have been their perspective. And when I try to do that, that's when the box opens, and when it's just this of what that all just tells you, what it adds to the narrative we've been handed, right? It just kind of cracks it, man, on the skull, right? Like hard. Because this chief, whatever they called him, I'm sure it wasn't the word chief, right? He had this force that he had been told, right? He had not seen, right? Approaching. And who knows what the reports were coming to him, because in Kusa's territory, the entourage of DeSoto was courted by the chief Kusa, right? Now, who knows why, right? We can't suppose, but the descriptions given by the chroniclers give you the impression that Kusa was perhaps typical politic, ruler, as we might be sort of accustomed to understanding, right? He made power moves, and he even tried to use DeSoto's, men to quash little problem, little rebellious entities he was having issues with, near his territory, right? And he was entreating them to stay and stay longer, right? So who knows how it was being reported, but what you can say for certain is what was being described to him was something to Tuscaloosa, was something that he had never heard or could possibly picture. We are media saturated today, so it's hard to imagine, not being able to imagine something, right? Just having it described to you. But I liken it to, a UFO, right? Imagine just whatever a Hollywood version of fancy, sleek, interstellar, whatever, just crazy UFO, right? And put whatever inside you want, some kind of humanoid, whatever, right? Now, imagine that encounter. Imagine someone trying to describe it to you before film or TV was ever invented, right? Okay. So there's a bit of that has to honestly be granted these natives, because you've got men on animals that they haven't seen. I mean, the animals are wearing armor, right? Shiny. I mean, what the fuck's armor, right? It's shiny. It's hard. You can't kill them in battle, right? And they're running these beasts that are just, you can't outrun them. Nothing in that story you think that would inspire a chief to formulate a plan like Tuscaloosa did, right? You get a glimpse when they tell you about DeSoto's entourage and army entering Attahachie. They all describe quite well the reception that was received, and that was Tuscaloosa seated on his mound with all his entourage, seated and completely ignoring the military parade that was being put on for his benefit by Hernando, right? He didn't even look at him. So again, imagine, this Hollywood UFO landing on your yard and you don't even look at it, right? You get a glimpse of his character there. But then when you see this map and you see this plan that unfolded, you see a military genius at play. You see a daring right? A cunning, an intelligence, the likes of which, I mean, it's hard to parallel, like a William Wallace, you know? That's a pretty decent parallel, I would say, when it comes to somebody that was written off, by the other side as just barbarians, rough shots, right? Yeah, I think that's a good parallel. What he came up with and what he did. Again, sorry, I looked over. Y'all are looking at Venus. Now I gotta go see Venus. We're at an hour. We're talking about the chief. We didn't talk about the chief the whole time. But what he did tells us so much more than we even knew from these firsthand accounts about what the native population was, right? And what I mean by was, what their character was, what they were made of, how they were, right? And then we've just gone through too many years of having necessities of land claims and all of this good stuff to just sort of beat that narrative to a pulp, trying to call these people, butt flaps and barbarians and this sort of thing in general, just from the media and Hollywood and all that. It's what it sort of berates us with. But it was so much the opposite, right? It is so much. And that's why the story means so much to me. Yeah. That's why I have a personal attachment to it. And I guess we touched on Mabilla and backstory, didn't we? But where are my notes? As we're getting personal transformation. I guess we did touch on that, right? Because I said that in the ad that I'd touch on it, and I've kept my tempo after the first 20 minutes or so down, and that's your fault, Jacqueline. See what happens when you see it's not constructive criticism. You do it the other way. You go, I come home from work and I'm trying to wind down, and I just love listening. Your show's like relaxing. Better keep that up. But we also have to have some laughs, and so I try to do that in the first. And we're winding past our hour. And what else? We want to talk about personal transformation, do we? I don't know. Who else out there has been through personal transformation? I know absolutely. I'm not looking for like a chat grab because I know all of you have, the ones that are sitting here talking with me. But those watching back, right? That's the backbone, right? That is to any story I have to tell you. That is the exclamation point. That is it's all possible through the power of transformation that one can undertake, right? Here. Process that begins within, but that ends without, right? And guides us to learning so much about the truth of our past, which has been kept from us, right? And when I say that, I just found a lot of this stuff, I'm not like blaming anybody, I'm just saying there are definitive powers that have been at play at making sure the evidence that we do have or find or is put forth has been of a certain narrative. That is without a doubt to anybody that looks deeply into the historical record of really the history keepers of North America, right? That goes without saying. How do I keep going back to history when I was supposed to be telling you guys about personal transformation? Well, he sure didn't transform too much, did he? You can't stay on topic. So, well, thank you, Tammy. Thank you. Well, it's hard to even know where to begin, right? I hit on it sometimes. And I think it's best to sort of let it flow that way. But what I do want to make sure is accomplished is that anybody watching, right, who is undergoing, and I like to try to use vague words here for a reason, is undergoing any sort of personal transformation, right? And that could be, oftentimes when we say that phrase right there, man, we always think, like, I guess because of Hollywood or something, I don't know, we always think, yeah, there's like light. Well, that sounds awesome. Personal transformation. Woo! There's like a happy ending or some shit, but where it starts and where it spends the large portion of its time, if it's going to be effective, is in not great places, right? Dark places, lonely places, scared places, fearful places, just all the negative, adjectives, right? So I don't want to stay vague, damn it. So it's important for me, right, for these people to understand that is the driving force behind everything I show you. Everything came after the process of personal transformation, right? Yeah. That is, I guess, the truth. All I really wanted to the juxta of what I wanted to get out, Tammy, is it's important for me to, as people, begin stumbling in for all kinds of reasons to this show. I mean, Lord, I'm across so many platforms now, and we are history heavy, everywhere else I appear, right? It's always, the material. And because we're diving so much into the other here, it's just important, for people to know that that's part of my story, yeah. Drinking, like, man, I want to turn it into a story, about what those days could be. But yeah, something that had me in a terrible place, the darkest of all places, as anybody who's suffered with addiction knows. It's so dark you feel there's no one on earth that could possibly understand, And part of why I ended up, having to find that spiritual route, because you're like, there's nobody that can help. Are you real? Oh, shit. Yeah, you are. You hit me with Mobilla. Damn, that was okay. You see how I'm always going to try to go to a joke, too, when we start talking about the pain, because that is honestly the only healthy response, especially once one is going through and seeing oneself through it. A sense of humor, how did Dan Millman put it? A sense of humor, especially about oneself, is a source of strength beyond all measure. Yeah, and I kind of live and die by those words personally, and I'm trying to start sharing that here. I make myself crack up all the time, so we're seeing how well that carries forward here. It's hit and miss game, I know, but I'm laughing, so I'm winning. Okay. We dodged personal transformation yet again. No, we didn't. We addressed it well. So anybody out there that's going through that, please know that part of my story, the crux of my story, is what one can get through, and once one goes within, what it's possible for one to find without, right? Hence the name of the series, and hence me stumbling through this episode, which I have formatted, and I don't know why I even feel like stumbling. I guess it comes natural to us because we're so used to programming, right? And it feels weird to be taking people's time and sort of leave it open, but it's important to do, I think, 1 of the 3 episodes a week like this, to where we can just wander and chat, and I can tell stories. And that's what I've done. And it's an hour 12. Anybody want to hear a story? Or I'm going to do my due diligence and wrap it up here. Let's check in with the chat. Okay, Jacqueline. Okay, so Tammy's telling us all about, you guys go outside and look at the sky, apparently, if you don't have clouds like I do. And check out the moon and Venus, which would be in your western sky, right? Am I right? Okay, so there we go. You got to crawl before you can walk. Laughter is absolutely the best medicine. Most cliches are cliches for a reason, but it is truly medicine. And it's power. It's power. If you can experience yourself going through something tragic, something painful, something trying, right? And finding some humor about yourself or something in your vicinity whilst doing that, you understand viscerally, quite viscerally, that it's more than medicine. It is, in fact, a survival mechanism, right? It's a survival mechanism. And I'll say that standing on your coffee table in my bare feet, as to quote Lyle Lovett. Who was that? That was Lyle Lovett on David Letterman. They were talking about Bob Dylan, and Lyle Lovett said Bob Dylan is the greatest American songwriter of all time, and I will say that standing on your coffee table in my cowboy boots, and he had on nice red leather cowboy boots. But I, alas, am perpetually clad in these bare feet, but they serve me nicely. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming to hang out with me as we begin the week again, the week of casting. So I've committed to 3. We'll be here for another 2 episodes. Because it's the beginning of summer, I won't have my children this next weekend, and then I get them for the summer. So, which is nice. Don't even want to talk about it. Don't get me started on that part of the trials, which is what I look forward to all winter, to be honest. But I have 2 weeks before then, and I have several places I need to go. I had an invite extended to me just yesterday. If you're watching, Blake, I'm talking to you. My nephew has a boat ready to run down in the area of Mobile Bay. Daphne, no, I don't think we're going to be. He's the one that dropped the explosive on the dam there in Mobile. But did you guys read about that? It's crazy. A routine check, and they found that. I'm not sure. I don't know, really. Okay, anyhow, he has finally got prepared for a trip to the Bottleneck Creek? Yeah, Bottleneck Creek Mound Complex down there, which is a Native American mound complex, which is at the end of the Alabama River, sort of down there as you're getting into the Mobile Bay and then the Gulf of Mexico. That you need water transport to access. It's basically on an island. So he sent me a text just the other day saying that boat's ready. When am I ready? So hopefully that will be one of them. I don't want to jinx it, but I also have a few more locations up in North Alabama. It's actually sort of central that I've never been. They look exceptionally promising for the big melted rock and metal antediluvian material. So I also am hoping to plant, to do that. These are all sort of, except for the mound, the Bottle Creek, perhaps, all day trips, So I hope to get 1 or 2 in for you guys to get us some good original material to look at. In the meantime, if you like the spiritual side of all this and you like the nature, go check out episode 11 there on Rumble and YouTube. And if you like the material aspect and challenging current narratives, then look at episode 12 and look at some of these things I have found in the landscape and see what you think about the narrative we've been handed about how they were formed and what I show you they actually look like on the ground when you're there in the middle of these forests. I think episode 12 on Flag Mountain hits that pretty well. And I am at 1 hour and 17 minutes, which is well at and slightly over my target time. Did I miss anything in the chat? I didn't. Tammy, Jake Wills, Sarah, thank you. Right? I could say it all night. I could say it all day, and it's still, appreciate you guys. You don't know how much, you do. You knew, because you do this too. Tammy, you're talking about getting started. Get started. You're hanging with 2 girls right there that will get you started real quick. Look at me. Yeah, just look at me as your paradigm of hope. There's your obligatory Coen Brothers movie reference for the evening. That was Oh Brother, Delmar. Just look at Delmar here. Yeah, look at me. Love you, Jacqueline. Love you, Sarah, Tammy, and everybody at home. Rumble, let me know how it's going. Let me know if you're seeing me. Let me know if you found me on Rumble. So this is our first night, and we're happy to be there. We're glad it's working, and we'd love to hear from you if you found us that way. YouTube, go check out my series Antediluvian Alabama if you like what I've been talking about with big rocks. Rumble, I haven't got that uploaded yet. Rumble takes a lot longer, man, you know, on mobile, which is how I've been doing a lot of this work to get uploaded. But I've still got them all made, you know, just like they were for YouTube. So I'm going to get those up on Rumble, I hope, soon in the next couple of weeks. But in the meantime, go over and check out Antediluvian Alabama on Rumble, on YouTube. On Rumble soon, Jason, and in the stream, Jason. What's Sarah saying? Press stop. Find me on X, Shaman711 _ YouTube, Shaman711, Facebook, Jason Huffman. Good night, guys. We'll see you tomorrow, Wednesday. I don't know. One of these days, when I'm not out going to a mound site or just some big rocks. Good night, everybody. We'll see you for episode 14 in the next day or two. And from the bottom of my heart to everybody that was not in the chat, thank you very much for checking out my humble efforts here. I have a lot to tell and to show, and we're just taking it one day at a time, and we'll all get there together. Thank you. Love you guys.